Hi there everyone. I've gotten several requests for some tutorials on how to make a wine bottle bag, so I figured I would share how I make them. There are several different ways to make them. This is just how I make them. First, you need two different kinds of fabric, one for the outside and one for the lining. I use two contrasting fabrics. I put the print on the inside and the solid on the outside so that we can do an embroidery design on the outside of the fabric. This video probably won't dive in too much on the embroidery aspect of it. This is really more about the construction of the bag itself. So I'm just going to take this and put this to the side. This is the design that I'll be doing today in this video, but you can do whatever design you want. This is great for smaller embroidery machines, like a 4x4 embroidery machine. This would work really well with. So these are some of the fabrics and tools that we're going to need. Again, this is just cotton, two different kinds, 2 sheets of tearaway medium weight stabilizer, that's this here in the back, matching threads. Some of my favorite scissors here, I have fabric scissors, a rotary cutter, embroidery scissors, some snips. We'll need some ribbon to create the drawstring closure. I always like my trusty seam ripper. We'll need a marking pen and either a bodkin or a safety pin for pulling through the ribbon when we make the drawstring. And this is just some basting spray that I like to use during the embroidery process to temporarily adhere the stabilizer to the fabric while I'm hooping it. So let's get started on cutting some of the fabric. So what I've done here is I've just stretched out the one fabric or laid it flat, but it does fold over, and I've tried to get it all onto the screen here, but I'm not succeeding. So you can see I did do this on the fold. I probably could have ironed this fabric before placing it out here, but I just wanted to do a quick tutorial. I actually happen to have a template for the wine bottle bags that I use all the time. This will make the bottle bag about 15 inches long, 7 wide on the fold. And that's inches, by the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this. I hope you can see most of this. It's hard to get it all on the screen. But again, I happen to have a template. You can use a ruler. You can make your dimensions anything you want. This is just for bottle bags. You could use them for gift bags if you want to make different dimensions, wider, shorter, etc. So I'm just going to cut the interior line. This is the lining, and then the exterior, which is the solid red, both the same size, using my rotary cutter here. And when using templates like this, you want to not palm your template. You want to kind of just use your fingertips so that it doesn't slide. I'm doing this a little bit upside down, so it's a little hard for me. And I think my blade is dull. Probably could have done a little bit better than that. Like I said, I think my blade is dull. Okay, I did change my blade while I was off camera there. I am trying to get this all into the shot. It's a little bit difficult, but same thing as before. I'm using my template. I'm on the fold of the fabric, the same measurement as before, 15 by 7 inches. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this piece. Okay. So now we have our 2 pieces. And I've gone ahead and I have cut my ribbon. There are 2 of them. and they are cut to 24 inches long each. And we're just going to set them aside for now. So this is the outside of our bottle bag that we're creating. So what I need to do, and again we're on the fold here, what we need to do here is measure up from the bottom of the bag and kind of place where we want our design to go. I like to put mine about 6 inches up from the bottom. And this is where our marking pen comes in a little handy. Can't really see that. Here we go. And I'm just going to kind of place, see the dot that I created there, I marked it at 6 inches up from the bottom. I'm just going to kind of place the design that I'm looking to use in that general area and then tape it down. That looks pretty straight. Let's get this hooped up. Okay, so I've gone ahead and gotten my outside fabric hooped up, being careful not to hoop the whole fabric. We're just doing the one side. I did go 6 inches up from the fold like I showed you. I am using an embroidery machine that has a camera. That's why I've left the printout of it. I know it looks a little crooked, but that's what that little snowman is for. I do have a Brother a multi-needle embroidery machine that does have the camera feature. So the snowman is there to help us keep that all straight. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the embroidery machine. I've loaded my design, I've loaded my thread. We'll get this centered on the machine and get to stitching. Okay, so that's done with its embroidery. It looks pretty good. I'm probably going to go ahead and press this just a little bit just to make sure we don't have any lumps or bumps. And I'll clean up the back side. Just all this extra thread will get trimmed off. We don't have to go too crazy because it's going to be inside the lining and no one's going to see it or touch it. So I'll come back when that's done. Okay, we got it unhooped. We got it cleaned up a little bit in the back. Again, we don't have to go crazy because no one's wearing this and it's going to be inside a lining. So it's not going to matter a great deal. So I'm just going to pin this up now for sewing. So next what we're going to do is go ahead and sew these. So right sides together. We're going to sew. Now for the lining, we're going to turn that around. And again, I probably could have ironed these, but I didn't. And that's okay. We'll be okay. So since we're on the fold, we obviously don't have to sew down here, but we're going to go, let's see if we can get that all on camera here. How about that? We're going to sew the length of your exterior on both sides all the way up. We're not going to close off this end, just straight stitch here, straight stitch here in a matching thread. And then for the lining, a little bit different. We have to do it a little bit differently. We're going to sew one side completely up to the top as you normally would, but then this second side we're going to sew to maybe about here. We're going to leave a little bit of a gap, no stitching here, and then continue all the way up to the top. Again, we're not sewing this closed at the top. We've got the closure at the bottom. And the gap that we're going to leave is so that when we turn it around and put the lining inside the outside, you have a place to turn it. And then we will top stitch this down in one of the final steps. So we're going to go over to the machine and stitch this down. So just like we did earlier, I switched out the upper thread and the bobbin to be red, just so we're matching here. And I'm just laying my piece of fabric down right at the edge of my foot here. It just seems to work easiest for me. And we're just going to sew some straight lines, very simple. Remembering to backstitch always. Okay, here we go. If you wanted to, you could box these corners so that it would lay a little bit more flat when you put the bottle actually inside the bag, or your gift inside the bag. It would produce a really nice polished finished look. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to leave it straight edged so that these can be quick and easy for you. Okay, and here's the part that I always get confused or messed up until I've done these so many times now that I more often get it right than not now. But we have our two bag pieces. They are inside out. What we're going to do is we're going to take your outer piece of fabric and we are going to turn it right side out. And this doesn't have to be perfect at this point, but we just want to make sure we get that turned out. Then this lining, or this outer lining, goes inside of this. So it's almost like right sides together. And what we want to do is we want to line up this edge and this edge so that they're together, because we are going to sew that edge and make it closed. I am going to try and put our seams together here and try to lay them flat as much as possible anyway. Let's see. Pin, and we're going to do that all the way around the bag. Okay, so now we are going to go ahead and sew this top edge all the way around the bag. So we'll go over to the machine and see what that looks like. Since my inner lining is now what I'm sewing on top of and the other fabric is on the inside, I have switched my threads. So now that my bobbin is red and my upper thread is white. Okay, and same thing, I'm just using the edge of my presser foot as kind of a guide. I don't like to start right on the seam here. I don't like to start sewing there, but close to it. Again, my stitch length is still 3.5. This will be on the inside of the bag once we turn it out. Here we go. go back and we will trim up these threads and make it a little bit neater looking. Okay, so I've trimmed our threads and tried to make it a little bit neater. So now we're going to use this opening to pull this through. We're going to pull our other lining through that hole. And in doing so, you're actually turning that pattern lining inside out, or right side out rather. Okay, good, we got it all through here. Okay, we got that. Now we have to sew up the gap or the opening that we left in the lining fabric. So when we did our turning of the fabric from inside to right side, we now have to sew this gap closed. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm just kind of placing and finger pressing a little bit of an edge there and kind of making note of where I started and stopped stitching so I know where to put my needle down. So I'm going to go take care of that now. And I'm doing this really closely to the edge. Now we're going to take this and put it inside of our outer lining. Just using my ruler to help me get it down inside there. Okay, I've got it back inside the bag here. And I've just kind of finger pressed this so that we had an edge to work with. That was nice. And we're going to take it back over to the machine and we're just going to top stitch all along here. So back over to the machine. Okay, so I'm going to now top stitch this. I have red fabric on top, so I've changed my thread to be red here, and I have the white lining, so I've changed my bobbin to be white. And I did lower my stitch length a bit. I'm going to change it to 2.5 just to give it a little bit more of a tighter look. And I am going to probably use the inside of my foot as kind of a gauge. Again, I don't like to start in the front and I don't like to start on a seam. So I'm going to start like right about there. Just past that seam. And we're just going to top stitch real quick. See how that came out. All right, I know we're gonna have to take care of some threads here, but that's fine. We did get stuck in that one place, but it looks pretty good. Okay, let's go trim those threads, and then we'll make the channels. Here's where you have to do just a little bit of math. In order to be able to make the channels, you need to know how wide your ribbon is. I happen to be using 5/8 inch ribbon. It's just a Offray 5/8 grosgrain ribbon that I think I got at Joann's or maybe even Walmart. You'll need to know how much you want to come down from the top. Enough room for your channel. I'm going to leave probably about an inch for the channel, so you're going to be sewing 2 lines, one here and one maybe about here. So I happen to have these thread guides, fabric guides here, so I already have them placed out where I do my channels for my wine bottle bags because I do make them often. So I'm going to go ahead and just do the first channel. Again, I didn't have to change any threads. I'm just going to do the top channel here. Again, not starting in the front, not starting on a seam. Just getting that realigned here against the edge of this purple fabric strip that I have laid out here, precisely where I want that to go. Lower my foot and we'll sew the top of the channel. When the seam on the opposite side, we're going to go over the seam, we'll go back stitch over the seam and go forward again. And I'll explain why that's important later. Okay. And same thing, we're going to go back over it. And forward. Lift our foot and do the same thing, moving it down, moving your fabric down to the next guide here, which I don't know if you could see, but it's back here. So I'm pressing that fabric up against that guide to make our second channel. So our top stitch is along here, which you probably can't see very well right now. Then we have the channel top thread that we just sewed down right here, and now we've left about an inch, and we're going to sew a line here. So I'm back at my seam, realigning my fabric here, foot down, couple stitches, back stitch, and we're going. Back stitching over the seam. It does get a little tight in the throat plate here. There we go, we're almost there. We're going to go back over that seam. Okay, so now you should be able to see, and I'll take it to the workbench and you can probably see it even better, but there's a channel here that you now have. Let's go over to the workbench and then we'll get the ribbons in. So hopefully now you can see the channel that we created. And now what we need to do is open up the seams. So you remember we stitched, then we back stitched, and we went forward again, and that's just to strengthen these 2 places on each side. So that when you're pulling those ribbons on the drawstring to open and shut it, the fabric just has a better chance of staying together. So I'm just going to take my seam ripper and I'm going to very carefully open up just the one side of the channel, just the red fabric. pretty easy. But you're not doing the inside. You're only doing this red fabric on the outside edge. I'm going to do it on both sides. Okay. Okay. Here comes the tricky part. We're going to take one of our ends of ribbon, and if you want to use the bobby pin method, that's fine. Not bobby pin, a safety pin method, or you can use your bodkin. This doesn't work as well for me for some reason. I just prefer this safety pin method. So we're going to feed this in, and we're going to go around to the other side, but we are not going to come out. At this point, we're going to bypass that and keep going. And we are going to draw the ribbon out from the same place, same opening that we entered, and pull through. Easy, right? Just make sure that that's laying a bit flat, and we'll have to trim that off and fix that. Now for the other side. Here's our second piece of ribbon. We're going to sort of do the same thing. However, we're not going to enter here. We're going to enter over here. And same thing, and this is where it becomes just a little bit tricky. You've got to get around these ribbons and come back out the other side. So now you have both, and if you were to do this, it cinches right up. Pull apart. Now here's where I like to add just a little bit of fray. I'll trim this off, and we'll add just a little bit of fray check to each end, and maybe cut it on an angle so it looks nice, and then we put knots. I'll come back when that's done. And there's your bottle bag with its little ribbon knots, and you're all set. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe, and maybe we'll do some other tutorials in the future.